The Broadway Show is back with another stacked episode. Glad you're here. I'm Tamsin Fidel.
We got trouble. Right into the city.
We are on the road to the Tonys, and we're kicking things off with The Music Man. It's nominated for 6 Tony Awards, including Best Revival of a Musical, Best Actor in a Musical for Hugh Jackman, and Best Actress in a Musical for Sutton Foster. Let's send it out to Paul Wontorek.
Thanks, Tamsin. The Music Man marks Sutton Foster's 7th Tony Award nomination. I got to sit down with Marian the Librarian herself at the stunning, historic Morgan Library and Museum. Sutton, it's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you too.
You are a 7-time Tony Award nominee now, 2-time winner. 7 Tony nominations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I feel like this one must feel different in a lot of ways.
It does, actually. It really means a lot. Especially after the last couple years, even just sort of taking on this role that I was like really intimidated and scared about. It feels particularly special to be recognized.
It's also been a while.
It has been a while.
It's been like, I think, 8 years since Violet.
Violet was in 2014.
You were off being a TV star and doing 7 seasons of Younger, which I loved every episode.
Thank you.
But yes, you're back, and so it's a nice return.
A nice return, yeah.
And your name is really big on that.
My name is really big on a billboard that I try to avoid at all costs.
Really?
Yes.
Looking up at that.
I do. If I take the subway, I am forced to face it, like because the 50th Street subway is right there, and I'm like, and it's just so big. But it was on, that billboard was up for like 2 years.
The entire pandemic, yes.
And I refused to look at it.
Right. Do you remember the first time your photo was like on a billboard in Times Square?
Oh gosh, it had to have been Millie, right?
I guess so, yeah. Remember that show? That was a good show.
That was a good show 20 years ago.
Years ago. That's why this also feels special. This is the 20th anniversary of your first Tony nomination and first Tony Award win.
That's so crazy.
I mean, that show was opening this time of year.
I know.
You think about how long Music Man took to get to this moment.
Yes.
And then Millie, it was like it opened and then you immediately, like you won a Tony like a few weeks later.
I know. That was a whirlwind. And I really, I don't even know if I had the capacity to really appreciate it. It was all happening so quickly, and I can look back on it now and have perspective and go, wow, look at that, look what happened there. I think I have a greater sense of gratitude and appreciation now, especially because it was gone. So I think with theater non-existent, you come back to it, and there's not a day that I don't walk into the theater without I'm like, we're on Broadway. We get to do what we love, Yeah. And so there's like a greater appreciation of every single step.
But it's a very different world. It's very different backstage. Your day-to-day life is very different now. What is it like starring on Broadway right now? Obviously, you very publicly, you got COVID very early in the run.
I did, I got COVID.
And Mr. Hugh Jackman got COVID.
Yeah, so we are still living with COVID. I mean, the biggest difference is that we aren't allowed any backstage guests.
Right.
So we're like in a little bubble.
Yeah.
Everyone is really diligent about wearing masks, and you have your little masks, and you kind of, I don't know, people have gone on stage with their masks on because we're so used to them now.
That's hilarious.
So you
like
just forget.
Accidentally just walking.
Of course, and you're like, they were saying, like whatever, the Iowa Stubborn, they're starting singing, they're going, slowly ripping off a mask, But we've just become so used to it. Especially when we were rehearsing with masks on, doing big dance numbers, and you're just doing it, and you get to whatever it takes to do the thing. I didn't know. I thought, will audiences be different? Like will it somehow? Will they feel inhibited? Will they not want to respond? But audiences have been incredible and so responsive and uproarious and joyful but it feels that way backstage. I mean, on stage and backstage too.
You are playing Marian the Librarian, and here we are.
I know.
And we are at J. Pierpont Morgan's legendary library. This is a very famous New York City landmark.
It's incredible. I've never been here. It's so beautiful.
I'm glad that we were able to bring you here. This is part of the Morgan Library and Museum. People should visit it. Yeah, Marian would lose her mind in
Yes,
here.
absolutely. Yes, she would, and she would run a tight ship. Yeah, she would. Yeah.
Yeah, I could picture you on like ladders and doing a whole Marian Librarian number with Hugh Jackman.
I see it. Exactly.
For the movie. Let's do a movie.
Okay.
Do you think there's a copy of Hooked in here?
Probably. Well, there will be someday. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Your memoirs, which I actually loved reading. That was one of the projects that you dove into during the pandemic, during your time at home. You wrote a really cool, unique memoir.
Thanks.
Because it was, what's the subtitle? Hooked.
Oh, How Crafting Saved My Life.
How Crafting Saved My
Yeah,
Life.
I had this idea. I'd always wanted to write a book. It was something, I had like this bucket list, you know, as a kid. I was like, I'm going to write a book and run a marathon. Those are the only two I remember. I haven't run a marathon yet, but I had a very complicated relationship with my mom, and I knew I wanted to tell her story and my story with her. And then after I adopted my daughter, it was like, there was something about how we pass stories and inherit stories and how we raise our children and then I was trying to figure out a way to tie everything together, and so I remember pitching the idea to my agent and saying, I was like, all right, I have this idea about telling it through crafting and like through the things I make or have made, because they all tell stories and they all like are like little time capsules of like certain time periods of my life. And then suddenly when I came up with that concept, then the story sort of wrote, it was all kind of everything kind of came out. I
loved it.
Thanks.
And there's crafting tips and an interview with Patti LuPone.
I know.
Throw that in there.
I'm a huge Patti LuPone fan, and she was like instrumental about why I am doing what I'm doing. And I remember watching her when I was 15 years old on the Sondheim celebration at Carnegie Hall, and just being like, what is this? Who is that?
Yeah, singing Being Alive
She sang Being Alive from Company, and I was so obsessed. And I'd met her several times, and you know, we've never had the opportunity to work together, but she knows my name, you know, like there's things like that. We were like, Patti LuPone knows my name. So when I was writing the book and I realized, oh, she's such a big part of it, I sent her a text and said, would you be up for me interviewing you? And she said yes. And so we like spoke on Zoom for an hour. And she was remarkable. It was like one of the greatest hours of my life.
And your second Tony Award was actually for playing Reno Sweeney in Anything Goes.
Yes.
And that was, I know, a role that was intimidating, partly because of Patti LuPone, because she had played it on Broadway.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was kind of like, I'm doing a Patti LuPone role.
Yeah, and Reno, like, I didn't really know what I had sort of signed up for. Which is, I don't know, I leap a lot in my career without thinking at times. I mean, I feel the same way about Marian too. I kind of was like, I was like, okay, and then I went, wait a minute, what have I done? You know, and I did that with Reno, and it took me a while to find her, and I felt like that was a time when I leapt, and then I was like, uh-oh, I'm drowning. Like, I was like, uh-oh, how do I figure this out? And then I had this opportunity to play her again 10 years later in London this past summer on the West End, and that was really cool to be able to revisit her 10 years later with 10 years of life experience, and to be able to actually sort of step into those shoes with more confidence, you know, and again, like enormous gratitude, because it was my first time back on stage after and theater was opening up there before it was opening up here. And so I felt like I was like chasing the art, you know. I was like, I have to be back on stage in some way. And then to be able to revisit her was really, really, that was like a huge gift.
You are a very talented performer. We've seen you do many things, but I think of Marian Librarian as a very sort of rigid soprano, ingenue. I don't immediately think Sutton Foster.
Me neither.
It was a surprise
for me as well. So I remember getting a call from my agent about it, and they said they're doing a revival with Hugh Jackman of The Music Man, and they're talking about you as Marian. And I went, what? My first reaction, there's probably 20 people I would cast before me. You know, I was kind of like, oh, that's so, I was like, why? That's weird. And then because that was my first reaction, I went, huh.
Right.
Maybe there's something.
It intrigues you.
It intrigued me, the leap, or the challenge, or maybe there's an opportunity there, or maybe there's another way in, or another way to see her. And so, like, right after I was cast, I was like, maybe I should watch the movie. So we watched the movie, and I was like, oh, I see something here. I was like, I saw like a backstory, and I was like, oh, she's got a past. She has there's something going on. I was like, oh, there's something to work with here. And then it was 2 years later until we started rehearsal, working with Jerry Zaks and working with Hugh, and they were talking about this other version of My White Knight. Long ago, there was this extended version of My White Knight, and that had this huge patter section in the start, because the way I knew My White Knight was just the traditional, sort of ballady thing. And then as soon as they introduced that, I was like, oh, okay.
That was your end.
It was kind of. But then, oddly enough, I was still sort of freaked out by how she sounded. How do I find her voice, And we played with keys and all these things, but I still felt like, oh, I'm supposed to be this. I'm supposed to fit into this mold. And then, oddly, with playing Reno again in London, I was walking to the theater, and I was like, well, why can't the end of My White Knight be big? Why does it have to be that? And I was like, no, why can't she have, I was like, that's one of my strengths. This is her most, this is the strongest moment for her vocally in the show. And I was like, so I came in to poor Patrick, our music director, and I was like, I think I want to change the end of this. And I came in, and he was, to his credit and to everybody, they were like, let's try it. And so we just tried all these different ways, and that song just kept evolving and changing and growing, and then it was this thing, I felt like I was wrestling, but then I was like, oh, so is Marian. And then the minute I let go of trying to be something else and just tried to find my way in, then it just unfolded. It's like one of my proudest things characters I've ever sort of found is with her.
Yeah, I was in the audience and I was like, yeah, give me that Sutton Foster ending. Give it to me. We have a certain international movie star to talk about, Mr. Hugh Jackman. You actually were starring in Thoroughly Modern Millie when he first made his Broadway debut in The Boy from Oz.
Yeah.
It was the same, you were on Broadway with your Tony Award winner, and some upstart showed up to do The Boy from Oz, and you've met a few times.
Yeah, he came to see Millie. I have a photo of, I don't remember, it's like I have photo evidence.
Right.
And we've met several times, and then, but we had never really officially worked together. I did a couple workshops of Greatest Showman with him, so I met him then, but only for a couple days here and there.
Right. And then you had a great moment on the Tony Awards.
Yes.
That great moment.
Yes.
When he was hosting.
Yeah, he picked me up. I have a photo. We have, again, photo evidence of that.
Yeah. By all accounts, he is the nicest guy, the hardest working guy. It's a little dull. I mean, it's a little dull how perfect he seems.
Yeah.
Is anything I need to know about this guy, or is there anything you were surprised by? Maybe anything surprised you about actually working with him now every night, or?
I forget that he's
Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
Mr. Hugh Jackman.
Sometimes I have
International. Wolverine.
Yeah, I forget it. I forget that. He would do this when we were collecting for Broadway Cares.
Made a lot of money for Broadway Cares, yeah.
We raised so much money. It was unbelievable, the generosity of people. I'm blown away by it. People would call out, they'd be like, I love you, Wolverine! And he would do his Wolverine, and I'd be like, oh my God! And I would freak out, and I would have to run and hide in the corner, and I was like, I would just forget. I'm like, wait, because I just sort of see this guy who's I think one of his superpowers is that he's so disarming.
Yeah.
He immediately puts everyone at ease. He doesn't make anything about him. He's so incredibly generous to everyone around him. And so you're just like, oh, okay. So the greatest thing that's happened out of this whole experience is that I have a new friend who happens to be Hugh Jackman, which is super weird. But he's just to Emily, to my daughter, it's Uncle Hugh. So, she has no idea. She was like, is Uncle Hugh coming? Or whatever. And I'm like, yeah. He's just part of the family,
Well, I wanted to ask you about going through this experience with Emily, because she's old enough now and she can obviously see the show.
Yeah, she was with us in London, obviously.
Right.
But she saw 7 West End shows. Wow. I've seen 0.
What was her favorite?
Because I was very busy. She really liked Frozen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she was going through a frozen phase. But Hairspray was running there, so they saw Hairspray. She saw Anything Goes like 4 times.
Wow.
I know. And then she saw Joseph and Frozen and Singing in the Rain and like Lion King. She saw a ton of stuff. I invited her to the opening of Music Man, but she wanted to see it before the opening just to make sure she liked it. But she said a couple of profound things. She's seen it now 3 times, I think. And the last time she saw it, she said, "Mommy, at first," she was talking about Harold Hill, she goes, "At first, you only see his head, but then you see his heart."
Profound.
Profound.
Meredith Willson would love that.
Would love that. And then she goes, "Mommy, at first, you didn't like it when he threw the library cards, but then you threw the library cards." And I was like, yeah. She's so funny. But she really likes it. And then she'll wave, you know, in the audience. And she goes, "Did you see me waving?" I said, "Did you see me waving at?" She goes, did the kids see me?" Like she really wants to make sure that she knows that the kids.
That she's out there supporting everybody.
Yeah, and she really wants to. And she FaceTimes sometimes with Benjamin, who plays Winthrop.
Yeah.
He reads her a bedtime story. It's so sweet. At like half hour, they're like talking over FaceTime. This is parenthood.
But I love this for you because I remember Sutton Foster and Thoroughly Modern Millie, this kind of scared girl trying to like be what everyone said she was, right? This Tony winner. And now I love that you're going through this totally different, the journey of those 20 years.
Oh
It's
yeah,
amazing.
I have a whole stack of books, of children's books in my dressing room, and she watches me put on my makeup, and then she's like, has the show started? And I'm like, here it comes. They like listen to the train and they listen to the whole beginning, and I go, I have to wait until Uncle Hugh enters. And so we wait for Uncle Hugh's entrance, and I go, okay, good night, I gotta go, bye-bye.
So she must be excited that you and Mommy and Uncle Hugh are both going to the Tony Awards. Does she even understand what the Tony Awards are?
I tried to explain it to her today, but she was more interested in like singing a song about Paw Patrol. She really didn't care, which is best.